2,000 years ago, in the narrow stone streets of Jerusalem, people ate, cooked, and gathered, just like us. But what they ate would surprise you. This painting is one of the most famous images in history. It is also almost entirely historically wrong. Here is what the Last Supper actually looked like. No chairs, no long table. In the first century, you reclined on the floor, leaning on your left side, eating with your right hand. That changes everything. Archaeologists have uncovered actual first-century Jewish kitchens, and what they found inside tells us exactly what was on Jesus' table that night. Barley bread was the bread of the poor, coarse, dark, and dense. If you were eating barley, everyone at the table knew your social class immediately. Wheat bread was for the wealthy, soft, golden, and smooth. The bread on your table was not just food, it was a statement about who you were. Every single morning before anything else, women ground grain by hand on stone mills. Bread did not come from a market. It was made every day from scratch. Olive oil was everything: cooking, lighting, medicine, ritual. Without olive oil, life in ancient Judea simply did not function. Pressing olives was back-breaking work. Entire communities depended on the harvest, and the finest oil, the first press, was reserved for the temple of God. Fresh fish spoiled within hours in the heat. So they dried it, salted it, and packed it. Dried fish from the Sea of Galilee was sold across the entire Roman Empire. The disciples who followed Jesus were not fishermen by hobby. This was their livelihood, hauling nets in the dark before the world woke up. For most families, dinner was lentil stew. Every single night. Simple, filling. And this is the same meal that Esau traded his entire birthright to eat. The ancient Jerusalem market was loud, crowded, and full of color. Chickpeas, lentils, fava beans. These were not side dishes. They were survival. Cucumbers, leeks, onions, garlic. The Israelites craved these so deeply in the wilderness that they wept for them. Vegetables were not boring. They were comfort food. Figs appear more than any other fruit in the entire Bible. They were sweet, filling, and could be dried and stored for months. Jesus cursed one fig tree, and it died overnight. Pomegranates were so sacred in ancient Israel that their image was sewn onto the hem of the high priest's robe. This was not just fruit, it was theology. The grape harvest was the most celebrated time of the year. Entire villages stopped working. Everyone, young and old, went to the wine press together. Wine was not a luxury in the ancient world. It was safer than water. Children drank it. It was diluted with water, but it was on every table, every meal. There was no sugar, there was only honey. The promised land itself was described as a land flowing with milk and honey. This was the highest compliment imaginable. Hyssop, dill, cumin, coriander. Jesus specifically mentioned these herbs in his teachings. The Pharisees were tithing their spice gardens down to the last leaf. The Passover lamb had to be perfect, no defect, no broken bone, selected 4 days before and kept in the home, so the family knew it personally before it was sacrificed. The bitter herbs were not decorative, they were mandatory. Every bite was meant to make you taste slavery, to remember what Egypt felt like in your body. This dark paste of fruit and nuts represented the mortar that Hebrew slaves used to build Egypt's cities. You did not just remember the story. You ate it. Someone prepared this room ahead of time, carried water, arranged the cushions, lit the lamps. Jesus had arranged it all, knowing exactly what this night would mean. 13 men reclining around a low table, not in chairs, not in a row, in a circle, close enough to lean on one another. This is how John leaned against Jesus. He took the bread. He gave thanks. He broke it. 4 words that would echo through 2,000 years of human history and are still repeated every single week. Giving someone the first dipped morsel was an honor, an act of love from the host to a guest. Jesus gave it to Judas, even knowing what Judas was about to do. The Passover meal had 4 cups of wine, each with a name, a meaning, a moment. When Jesus lifted the cup and said, "This is my blood," every person at that table understood exactly what he meant. Jerusalem swelled to 3 times its population during Passover. The streets blazed with torchlight. The smell of roasting lamb filled every alley. The city was alive and would never be the same after this night. The wealthy ate roasted meats, fine wines, and exotic fruits on alabaster dishes. Jesus ate with them too, but he also ate with the poorest of the poor. He sat at every table. This is what historians and archaeologists believe was actually on the table that night. No turkey, no pasta, no long table with chairs, just bread, wine, lamb, bitter herbs, and a moment that split history in two. They ate, they sang a hymn, and then they went out into the night. It was the most ordinary meal and the most extraordinary one ever shared. And it still echoes every time bread is broken.